The first question is, in man and mammals, air passes from outside into the lungs through. Once again, I'll repeat the question. In man and mammals, air passes from outside into the lungs through the following. So, the first option given to you all is, so the air passes from, when you breathe in the air, what will happen? Through which passage? How the air enters the lungs? So, the first option given to you all is nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. So, to attend this question, you should know the diagrammatic view of respiratory organ. So, here, from where does the air enters inside? So, the first option given to you all, nasal cavity will be fine. So, as soon the air is breathed in, what happens? It enters to the nasal cavity. So, the nose nostrils or the nasal cavity. Then it enters to the pharynx, the next organ where the wind or the air enters. Then it goes to the larynx, then to the trachea and to the bronchi and to the bronchioles. So let me write the diagram for you all to understand this answer. See here, respiratory system. The first part, here we have epiglottis, then this part larynx, then a rough diagram, just you have trachea, then this trachea divides, then we have right lung and the left lung. Here we have a dome shape, just for understanding. So trachea, then it divides into bronchus, and these are bronchioles, and the bronchioles are again made up of alveoli. Okay, these are alveoli, and this is a dome shaped diaphragm, and the lungs are protected by a covering here. The lungs are protected by a covering. So here, the covering of the lungs. The covering of the lungs is called pleural membrane. Pleural membrane. So diagram based questions are important. So you should know the correct diagram of respiratory system. So here, so the air enters to the nasal cavity, then it goes to the pharynx, then it comes to the larynx, then it enters the trachea, then it goes to the bronchus or bronchi, then it divides to the bronchioles, then it goes to the alveoli. So the first option, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli will be correct answers. So if you go for the second option there, nasal cavity they have given pharynx, again larynx, trachea. So here the difference here is bronchioles is given. Instead of bronchi, they have given bronchioles. So that option will be wrong. Next, third option, nasal cavity, larynx, pharynx, trachea. Up to this, it is so second word. Instead of pharynx, they have given larynx. So that will be wrong. Then the fourth option, nasal cavity, larynx. Again, instead of pharynx, they have given larynx. So fourth option is also wrong. So the first option is nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli will be the correct answer. Next question. So again, the next question is given to you all. The given figure shows the diagrammatic view of human respiratory system. Identify A, B, C, and D. Okay. So again, they have given the. So before, the first question was related to the how the air passes from the pharynx to the lungs. It was given the first question. The next question is the diagrammatic view of respiratory system. So the diagram is on the board. So to see this question, so options given here, A is epiglottis, B is alveoli, C is bronchus, D is diaphragm. So see the board here again. A is epiglottis. Just write what the alphabets they have labeled to the diagram here. Epiglottis. B is, so this, B is alveoli. So B is alveoli. Then C is, so the C will be bronchus. C is bronchus here or bronchi. Then D is, so D is given here, this will be diaphragm. So the option which is given to here, so A is epiglottis, B is alveoli. First option, A is epiglottis, B is alveoli, C is bronchus, D is diaphragm. So the first option itself will be correct. Second option you see here, A, sound box. A, sound box here means larynx. Larynx is below the epiglottis. Next, alveoli. A is not sound box or larynx, it is epiglottis. B is alveoli. So that will be correct. C is bronchioles. So C bronchioles are bronchus. Then D is diaphragm. So the A and B are wrong there. Then in the third option, sound box, again it is wrong. B is alveolar, that is correct. C is bronchus and D is diaphragm. So C and D will be correct here, but A and B are wrong. Then in the fourth option, A is epiglottis, B is alveoli, C is bronchioles antan. It is not bronchioles, it is bronchus. Then D is diaphragm. So the answer for the second question, the diagrammatic view of respiratory system, first option is correct. So A epiglottis, B alveoli, C bronchus, C bronchus, D is diaphragm. Okay, next question. So the next question is, lungs are enclosed in. So the question related to the respiratory system itself. Lungs are enclosed in. The first option is pericardium. Second is perichondrium. Third is peritoneum. Fourth is pleural membrane. So you should know lungs are enclosed in. So see the diagram again. I have written here. Lungs are protected by. Lungs are protected by a covering. That covering is called pleural membrane. And the fluid that is present between the pleural membrane, two layers of pleural membranes are there. They are having a fluid called pleural fluid. So here when you take the diagrammatic view of pleural membrane of the lungs, we say that inner and outer layer. Inner layer and outer layer. Outer layer is called parietal membrane and the inner layer is called visceral membrane. Again, when you take the two layers of the lungs. So the answer for this, they have given four options there. Pericardium. So what is pericardium? The covering of heart is called pericardium. The covering of heart is called perichondrium. Then the second option, perichondrium. The covering of the cartilage is called perichondrium. The covering or the outer protective layer of cartilage is called perichondrium. Third one, peritoneum. What is peritoneum? Again, it is a support or a covering of some of the organs like stomach, intestine, and abdominal parts. So the fourth option, pleural membrane is correct. Lungs are enclosed in pleural membrane, and between the two layers of the pleural membrane we have pleural fluid, and the outer layer of pleural membrane is called parietal and the inner is called visceral. Okay, the answer is fourth one. Next question. Okay, so the next question is, so vital capacity of lungs. Vital capacity of lungs is, what is vital capacity? So if you know this, you should know some of the terminologies to understand this question. So yeah, vital capacity, vital capacity. Second one, tidal volume. Then you should know IRV, inspiratory, inspiratory reserve volume, inspiratory reserve volume. Then ERV, expiratory reserve volume. Then IRV, ERV, and the last one, residual volume. Residual volume. So what is vital capacity here? The vital capacity is nothing but, so IRV, IRV plus ERV plus PV. So here vital capacity is how much of air you're going to breathe after normal respiration. The possibly whatever the air you're going to take in is called inspiratory reserve volume. What is inspiratory reserve volume? After normal respiration, again forcefully the amount of air, the volume of air that is inspired by the normal human beings is called IRV. So how much volume we are going to take in is, it is 2500 ml to 3000 ml. Right? The second one, ERV, expiratory reserve volume. Expiratory reserve volume will be, so the amount of air after normal expiration, after you leave the air outside. So what is the amount of air you are going to forcefully remove from the lungs? That volume of air will be, it is about 1000 ml to 1100 ml. 1100 ml. Okay. Next, what is this? Tidal volume. Tidal volume is volume of air, volume of air inspired or expired, inspired or expired during normal respiration, during normal respiration. So during normal respiration, how much amount of air you are going to inspire in and how much amount of air you are going to leave outside. So that is called tidal volume, and the volume will be about 500 ml. Okay. So when you calculate the vital capacity, IRV plus ERV plus PV, it will be about, so it will be around 3800 to 4500 ml. Okay. The last one. What is residual volume? Volume of air that remains even after forcible expiration. So after you expire the air outside, the air is going to be removed outside. Whatever the amount of air that is forcibly remaining inside, that will be about 1100. Okay. So to attend this question, vital capacity of lungs. So they are given only what is vital capacity of lungs. So vital capacity of lungs is, so it is, I said, IRV plus ERV plus TV. So IRV means inspired respiratory volume or inspiratory reserve volume. The amount of air that is forcefully inspired by the normal human beings. That is IRV. And ERV, so here expiratory reserve volume after forceful expiration. So to calculate vital capacity, you should know that IRV plus ERV plus TV is equal to how much? 3800 ml to 4500 ml. Just they have asked you what is vital capacity. So the first option is IRV plus ERV plus TV minus RV. So that is wrong. Next, IRV plus ERV plus TV plus RV. That is also wrong. The third option, IRV plus ERV plus TV. So this is correct. So vital capacity of lungs will be, when we calculate IRV plus ERV plus TV, we'll get the answer. Fourth one, IRV plus ERV. So that is also wrong. So the answer will be third one. IRV plus ERV plus TV is correct. The next question. So the next option is, they have given match the following column 1 and column 2. So the first column here we have tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, D is residual volume, E is vital capacity. So they are given the numbers or the volume of air that is expired and inspired during forceful respiration. So the tidal volume will be, so I have written already on the board, the tidal volume will be 500 ml of air. So normal respiration and expiration, how much amount of air we are going to breathe in. It is 500 ml. So the tidal volume, the third option, 500 ml. Next, inspiratory reserve volume. It is, inspiratory reserve volume is 2500 ml to 3000 ml. So the first option for B. Next, C, expiratory reserve volume. It is, expiratory reserve volume is 1000 ml to 1100. So here you can take 1000 ml. So C is 2. Next, residual volume. So the amount of air that is going to remain in the lungs after forcible expiration. So the answer is 1100 to 1200 ml. So the fifth option is correct. Next, vital capacity is 2500, sorry, 3400 to 4800 ml. So you should know the volume of air to answer this question. So the options given to you are, A is tidal volume, it is 500 ml. A is 3. B, inspiratory reserve volume is 2500 ml to 3000. So B of B1. C, expiratory reserve volume is, C is 1000 or so. It is C is 2. D is residual volume, it is 500 ml. E is vital capacity is 4. So third option is correct here. Third option is so A is 3, B is 1, respiratory reservoir. Okay. B is 1, C, C is 2, then D, residual volume, that is 6. So answer for this will be fourth one. So A3, B1, C2, D5 and E4. Okay, tidal volume, respiratory, all the volumes you should get thorough to understand this question. Next one. Next question is during expiration, the diaphragm becomes. So during expiration, what will happen to the diaphragm? So lungs, when you take the diagram of respiratory system here, so the dome-shaped diaphragm, what will happen to the diaphragm during the air is breathing and the air is coming out? They have asked what is the condition of the diaphragm during expiration. So during expiration, the shape of the diaphragm will become dome shape. Dome shape. When we breathe in air, when we breathe in air, the diaphragm shape will be dome shape. Once again, during expiration, when we remove the air from the lungs, what will happen to the diaphragm? The diaphragm will become dome shape. So the intercostal muscles, the muscles that are present in the diaphragm, the intercostal muscles will become, they become flattened and the diaphragm will become dome shape. They have given four options here are flattened, dome shape, oblique, normal. So flattened will be during inspiration, dome shape will be during expiration, oblique will not come here and normal. So the answer for this will be dome shape. So you should know here the diaphragm that is present below the right and left nuts. These are particularly made up of a muscle. So these muscles are called phrenic muscles. Phrenic muscles. So they must. One of the question you should know for your need. So diaphragm is made up of muscles called phrenic muscles. So during expiration, the diaphragm becomes dome shape. Next question. So blood carries the CO2 in three forms. The correct percentage of CO2 in these forms are. So they are given during transport of oxygen and CO2 transport. How much amount of CO2 is going to be coming out? In which form it is going to come? So those the options given are. The options are there as carbaminohemoglobin in RBC. First option 7%. As biocarbonates 20 to 25%, dissolved form in plasma 70%. So that option will be wrong. So to understand this, see here CO2 transport, CO2 transport. So it is going to be transported in three forms as biocarbonates, that is 70%, then as carbonic acid 20 to 25%, then in the plasma of RBC we have is 7%. So the simple question here they are asking blood carries the CO2 in three forms as bicarbonate, as carbonic acid and through the plasma with the atoms. How much percent it is going to be dissolved? So first here, so the first option is wrong. As carbamino hemoglobin RBC 7%. As biocarbonates it is 20 to 25%. I said as biocarbonates it is 70%. Then dissolved form in the plasma it is 70%. So that option is wrong. Then second option here. Second option is as carbamino hemoglobin in RBC 20 to 25%, as biocarbonates 70%, dissolved form in the plasma. So this is correct. As carbamino compounds are as carbonic acid in the name. So that will be correct. Second option. So as carbamino hemoglobin in RBC is 20 to 25%, as biocarbonates it is 70%, and dissolved form in the plasma it is 7%. So here first option, second option is correct. Third option, second option is 70% in RBC as carbamino compounds. Second option is 20 to 25% of biocarbonates. Dissolved form in plasma is 7%. So that is wrong here, but third option is correct. So 20 to 25% in hemoglobin as carbamide, as bicarbonate 70%, dissolved form in plasma is 7%. The third option will be that. Fourth is again 20 to 25% in RBC, as bicarbonate 7% antarha. That is wrong. D is, sorry, third option here is dissolved form in plasma. So for this question, third option is correct. Next question. One hemoglobin carries how many molecules of oxygen? For the transport of oxygen, we need the help of RBC or the hemoglobin pigment that is present in the RBC. So simple question here. One molecule of hemoglobin carries how many molecules of oxygen? So we know that hemoglobin in the blood, it contains hemoglobin hemoglobin in the blood, it contains two groups here. The one group is called heme and another group is called globin. So heme is called iron part and globin is called protein part. You should know that here the iron part of the hemoglobin, it is having more affinity towards oxygen. It has more affinity towards oxygen. That's why there is a transport of oxygen through RBC or through the blood. So, but here the question is how many molecules of oxygen are going to bind for one molecule of hemoglobin. So, since there is a iron containing with the protein part, so we should know that how many molecules of oxygen is going to bind for one molecule of Fe or E. E is having the particular affinity. So here the answer will be 4 molecules of oxygen. So here options given to you all are 2, 8, 4 and 6. So one hemoglobin has the capacity to carry 4 molecules of oxygen during respiration of O2 or transport of O2. Okay. Next one. The next question. The enzyme that increases the rate of reaction between the enzyme that increases the rate of reaction between CO2 and H2O in red blood cells is, once again I'll repeat, the enzyme that increases the reaction rate between CO2 and H2O in red blood cells is. So they are given the enzymes there: carbonic synthetase, adenylate cyclase, alkaline phosphate, carbonic anhydrase. So the enzyme that increase the rate of reaction. So while you are learning CO2 transport, when you are learning CO2 transport, we have learned the reaction here. So during CO2 transport, the reaction here, CO2 plus H2O, it forms H2CO3 or HCO3. Okay. So during this reaction, when carbon dioxide will combine with water, the reaction is carbonic acid plus biocarbonates are formed here. So here they say that the enzyme called carbonic anhydrase, carbonic anhydrase will increase the rate of reaction. So the enzyme that will help in the transport of CO2 when it combines with water of the red blood cells, and it forms the components like this with the help of enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. So the answer will be carbonic anhydrase there. But what is the function of adenylate cyclase and alkaline phosphate here? So adenylate cyclase, the second enzyme, adenylate synthetase, adenylate cyclase. So this enzyme will help in synthesis of AMP to ATP. So the enzyme adenylate cyclase will help in synthesis of AMP to ATP. Adenosine triphosphate is formed with the help of adenylate synthetase, and another one is alkaline phosphatase. Alkaline phosphatase. So this enzyme will help in addition of phosphate group. Helps in addition of phosphate group. Addition of phosphate. Okay. So you should know the function of other enzymes also here. The exact enzyme which will help in increasing the rate of reaction when carbon dioxide combines with water to form the products, that enzyme will be carbonic anhydrase. And here carbonic anhydrase is also called fastest enzyme. Fastest enzyme which increases the rate of reaction. Next question. Next question is pneumotaxic center which can moderate the function of respiratory rhythm center is present at. So pneumotaxic center for respiratory system. So here in the brain, which part of the brain will control the respiratory rhythmic part? So when you take more air inside or less air inside to maintain this, which is the center they are asking. So pneumotaxic centers for moderating the respiratory system are present in which part? So the first option there, spinal cord. Spinal cord. Second one is thalamus. Third is right cerebral hemisphere. Fourth is pons region of the brain. So spinal cord is not related to the pneumotaxic center. Thalamus, hypothalamus, it is related to controlling the optic center. Right cerebral hemisphere, it is related to covering of the brain. But the fourth option, pons region of the brain, is responsible for moderating the function of rhythmic center of the brain. So the answer will be pons of Varolai. Pons of Varolai. Pons of Varolai. And we say that even medulla oblongata, it is also center for vomiting control. So here many of the mechanisms that are physiological mechanisms that are occurring in the human body are controlled by different parts of the brain. So the answer for center to moderate the respiratory rhythm center is called pons of varoli, that is present in the hindbrain of the human brain. So the answer is fourth one. Next one. Next is emphysema is a condition resulting from. Once again, emphysema is a condition resulting from. So first of all, what is emphysema? So emphysema, it is a disorder. Emphysema, it is a disorder of the respiratory system. Emphysema. So when you come to the disorders of respiratory system, we know that asthma is also one. Then occupational disorders are also coming under the respiratory system. Emphysema is a condition resulting from. What is emphysema here? We should know that when lungs are affected by by inhaling or smoking cigarettes. So or inhaling drugs or cigarettes. So continuous inhaling or taking drugs or cigarettes, it may lead to a problem called emphysema. So what happens to the lungs here? The lungs will become unstretchable or unstretchable. So when you breathe in the air, the muscles will expand. That expansion is going to be stopped because due to the accumulation of a tar-like substance called nicotine. Nicotine. Due to this, nicotine goes on into the lungs of the pleural membrane. It goes on attaching there. Due to that attachment, the lungs will become unstretchable and the lungs will get damaged. So continuous smoking of cigarettes will lead to a disorder called emphysema. So the options given here: reduced oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, liquor consumption, drug addiction, cigarette smoking. So your main emphysema will lead to the main problem for emphysema is smoking. Drug is not more effect, but smoking will lead to the emphysema. Here the lungs will become unstretchable. So during respiration they will be having problem because of the nicotine that is going to enter inside the lungs. So the answer is cigarette smoking will lead to a respiratory disorder called emphysema. Next one. Next question. Next one is, in breathing movements, air volume can be estimated by. So when we breathe in air, so the volume of air that is going to be taken inside, it is calculated by which instrument they are asking. Name the instrument used to measure the volume of air or movements of air. The options given here are spirometer, stethoscope, hygrometer, sphygmomanometer. So you should know what are these instruments here. The first option, spirometer, is correct. So spirometer is an instrument used to measure. Spirometer is the instrument used to measure air volume. Measure volume of air. Volume of air. So this movement of air, it is also called pulmonary respiration. Pulmonary respiration. Okay, pulmonary respiration. So spirometer is exact answer for this one. But what about stethoscope? The second option. Stethoscope is an instrument used to measure the heartbeat. The heartbeat that is going to occur inside the human body, it is measured by an instrument called stethoscope. Then what about hygrometer? Hygrometer is an instrument. Hygrometer, it is an instrument to measure humidity of air. Measure humidity of air. Humidity of air is done by the instrument called hygrometer. Then what about Sphygmomanometer, it is an instrument to measure the blood pressure of the arteries. Blood pressure of the arteries is measured by an instrument called sphygmomanometer. So the answer will be spirometer. Next one. Again we have is a match the following given. The first column is simple columnar, then B is cardiac muscle, C is adipose tissue, D is hyaline cartilage. So the question related to structural organization in animals. So simple columnar, so they ask the location here. Where are simple columnar epithelial found? So simple columnar epithelium are seen here. So the third option is third column to only third option. Inner lining of stomach and intestine is made up of simple columnar epithelium. Then cardiac muscle, wall of the heart, epithelium, then adipose tissue, below the skin in the abdomen, buttocks, thighs and breast. Then hyaline cartilage, it is present in the bone joints. So here diaphragm is also given in the column 2. Why not the diaphragm? Diaphragm is not made up of hyaline cartilage. It is made up of a muscle called phrenic muscle. So the answer for this question is simple columnar, simple columnar A3, then cardiac muscle, wall of the heart epithelium B1, C adipose tissue, below the skin in the abdomen, buttocks, thighs and breast, then D hyaline cartilage, it is bone joint. So the answer will be third one. Third option, simple columnar is present in the inner lining of stomach and intestine. B1, cardiac muscle, wall of the heart is made up of cardiac muscle. C adipose tissue, below the skin in the abdomen, buttocks, thighs and breast. Hyaline cartilage, it is bone joint. So the answer for this question will be third option is correct. Next one. The next question is cartilage is formed by. So the connective tissue. When we read the connective tissue, we come to know that there are connective tissues like blood, then cartilage and even the bone. So here cartilage is formed by. So the outer covering of cartilage, as I told in the previous question, cartilage is made up of. So where we reading it, the lungs are covered by pleural membrane. In that I have said that the outer covering of cartilage is the cartilage is formed by which type of cells they are asking. So the cartilage is made up of which type of cells? Cartilage is made up of cells called chondrocytes. The cells of the cartilage are chondrocytes. Here we have a fluid matrix called chondrin. The fluid matrix in the cartilage is called chondrin. Fluid matrix. Okay. So the protecting covering of cartilage is called chondrium and the cells are called chondrocyte and the matrix is called chondrin. So the first option is chondrocytes. That is correct. But what about the three options other there? Osteoclastus, osteoblast and fibroblast. Osteoclasts and osteoblasts are related to bone. The bones are made up of the cells called osteoblasts and osteoclasts. And fibroblasts, the cells that help in formation of fibers are called fibroblasts. So cartilage is made up is formed by chondrocyte. So the answer will be first one. Next one. The next question. Cardiac muscles differ from striated muscles is having. So cardiac muscles differ from striated muscle cells is having. So you should know the difference between cardiac muscle and striated muscle. So cardiac muscle are branch and they are uninucleate and they are involuntary muscles. As we know, cardiac muscles are branch, uninucleated, striations are present and they are involuntary muscles. But what about the striated muscles? Striated muscles are also branch but they are multinucleated and they are involuntary. So these three difference you should know to answer this question. So the options given here are fewer mitochondria. So mitochondria is present in, So the main difference to differentiate between cardiac muscle and striated muscle. So mitochondria is present in both centrally located nucleus. So nucleus is at the center where in the cardiac muscle. But in the striated muscles, the nucleus is scattered here and there. So this is exact difference to answer this question. So here in the cardiac muscle, the nucleus is located at the center, but in the striated muscle, nucleus is scattered here and there, and it is multinucleated. No sarcoplasmic reticulum. So both are having sarcoplasmic reticulum. Then different myofibrils. So myofibrils are present in both. So the answer for this will be second one. A centrally located nucleus will differentiate cardiac muscle from striated muscle. Next one. Which of the following statement is or false about columnar epithelium? So we know that columnar epithelium. So when you read the epithelial tissue, in the epithelial tissue we have three types of epithelial cells. One is called squamous, second one is called columnar, third one is, first one is squamous epithelium, second one columnar, third is ciliated, the three epithelium tissue. So in these three they have asked the function of columnar. So what are columnar cells? So we know that all the epithelial tissue are present on the basement membrane, and these tall pillar like slender like cells, these are called columnar epithelium. The columnar epithelium with the nucleus present towards the base. They are present towards the base. Okay. Nucleus is not at the center. The nucleus is at the periphery. So they are asking the statement related to columnar epithelium. So the first statement is it is made up of tall, slender like cells. So tall, slender like cells is correct. Tall, slender like cells. Then free surface may have microvilli. Free surface may have legs. Microvilli may be present, like finger like projections may be present, or they may have cilia legs. The free surface may have microvilli, finger like projections are called villi, or the free surface may have cilia. Okay, that is also correct. They are found in the stomach and intestine. So where is the location of this columnar epithelium? They are found in stomach and intestine. So that will be also correct. So stomach and intestine where the food is absorbed. For the storage of food also we have the intestine, or the stomach is having columnar epithelium. Next, for secretion and absorption, the columnar epithelium is going to help. Then ciliated epithelium is mainly present in the hollow structures like bronchioles and fallopian tubes. So this one. So modified columnar epithelium may have cilia on the outer surface also. So cilia that is present on the columnar epithelium will help it. So if you take bronchioles, in the bronchioles, to trap the air, and filter air, the bronchioles will be having ciliated epithelium. If any unwanted air, it is not filtered, it will be filtered by the ciliated columnar epithelium. And in the fallopian tube, when you come to the fallopian tube, we say that for the transport of egg, from the ovary till the part of the fallopian tube, the ciliated epithelium is going to help. The ciliated epithelium will carry the egg to the part of the fallopian tube where there is fertilization. Fifth option, they have apical nuclei. Apical nuclei is not related to this, only 1, 2, 3, 4. So apical nucleus means the nucleus is at the top, it means. So the nucleus is towards the base here. So the option 1, 2, 3 and 4 are correct. The fifth option is wrong. Which of the following statement is true, is false about columnar epithelium? Only 5 is wrong. So the first option is correct. Only 5. Next one. The type of epithelial such which line the inner surface of fallopian tube. If you see in the previous question, you can answer to this question also. So fallopian tube, bronchioles, small bronchi are known as. So here cubical epithelium, squamous epithelium, ciliated epithelium, columnar epithelium. Once again the same question here. Ciliated epithelium is the epithelial cell where it is present in the fallopian tube, bronchioles and small bronchi. Columnar epithelium is present in the inner lining of stomach and intestine is having columnar epithelium. Ciliated epithelium is present where? In the fallopian tube, bronchioles and small bronchi. Then squamous epithelium is present in the all the organs of the body where it forms a protective layer. So the answer will be third one, ciliated epithelium. Next one. Again, there is a diagram given, the diagram of areolar connective tissue. So when you read the diagram of areolar connective tissue, so they are asking you label the diagram. So they are given A, B, C and D. So the areolar connective tissue is given. The options are given. A is mast cell, B is macrophage, C is fibroblast fiber, D is collagen. So when you see the diagram there, we should know that A is a large cell. A large cell that is labeled is macrophage. So we say macrophage is a cell, it looks like a cartwheel. It looks like a cartwheel anta heltare. Chakra bande atara kanata macrophage. The cell that will engulf unwanted pathogen that is entering the system. Living system is called macrophage. So A will be macrophage, B fibroblast. There are two types of fibers that are present in the areolar connective tissue. One is collagen fiber and another one is elastin fiber. So B is fibroblast. The fiber producing cell is called fibroblast. Then C is D is mast cell. So A macrophage, B collagen fiber, C is fibroblast and D is mast cell. So mast cells are the cells that will produce the molecules like histamine and heparin. Mast cells will produce histamine and heparin. Fibroblast cells will produce fiber and the fibers are collagen and elastin. So option 3 will be correct here. For the diagram when you label, A is macrophage, B is collagen fiber, C is fibroblast, D is mast cell. Next question. Mammalian bone differs from cartilage in the presence of. So, to understand this, you should know the diagrammatic view of bone. When you take a TS of bone here, so bone is bone. So the bone is arranged in a concentric ring. When you take a rough diagram, the concentric rings of bone. Here the blood vessels are present. Here we have the rings like this. The concentric rings of bone is made up of a canal called Haversian canal. The concentric rings of bone is made up of Haversian canal. So Haversian canal. Haversian canal. So bone is made up of concentric rings and these concentric rings of the bone are called Haversian canal. So the options here, lymph vessels, collagen. Lymph vessels are present in the lymphatic system. Then collagen, the fibers of the cell. Collagen fiber, it is also called white fiber. Then blood vessels. Blood vessels is the common present in all the tissue, but differentiate between the bone and the cartilages. Haversian canal, it is present only in the bone, not in the cartilage. So the answer will be fourth one, Haversian canal. Next one. Next question is, bone is connected to the muscle with the help of. Bone is connected to the muscles. So bone to bone connection, bone to muscle connection. We have tissues like ligament, tendon, cartilage is present in the joints. Between the joints we have cartilage. Ligament, bone to bone connection is ligament. Bone to muscle connection is tendon. So the answer will be tendon. None of this is also given there. So the answer for bone is connected to the muscles. Bone is connected to the muscles with the help of tendon. Ligament means bone to bone. Cartilage means it is present in the soft between the tissue. Then, so cartilage it is present in the ear, pinnae, we said. Wherever the joints are there, it is made up of cartilage. Then tendons. Bone to muscle connection is tendons. The answer will be fourth one. Next one. Which of the following statements about cell junctions are correct? So cell junctions are going to help the tissue for transportation. We said that cell junctions will help in transport of molecules, transport of food to the cells from one cell to another cell. So here cell junctions. All the cells of the epithelium are held together with a little intercellular material. So between the cells, if we take the cells, if one cell is connected with the other cell, between the two cells, if I take, if this is one cell and another cell here, between the cells there is a intercellular connection for transport of food or any type of material. So here between the cells are held together with a little intercellular space. If they are compactly arranged, there is no movement of molecules. So there is a intercellular matrix. Then second option, in almost all the animal tissues, specialized junctions provide both the structural and functional link between its individual cells. So in all the structural function of cells, there are junctions for the transport of cells. So there are three types of junctions which I learned. One is adhering junction. One junction is called adhering junction. Second one is adhering junction. One is called gap junction. And the third one is called tight junction. The three junctions which will help in protecting the cells or help the cells in transport of materials. So tight junction help to stop the substance from leaking across a tissue. So if there is a tissue, in the tissue we have cells, the tight junction, it is compactly tight packed, there is no leaking of any substance. Tight junction will help in leaking, avoid leaking from the tissue. Next, adhering junction provides cementing to keep the neighboring cells together. So it forms a cement by forming a intercellular, this one. We can say it is as cytoplasmic matrix. Cytoplasmic matrix which will help in movement of molecules from one cell to other cells. It is called adhering junction. Then gap junctions provide cytoplasmic channels between the cells for passage of ions, small molecules and sometimes big molecules. We know that entry of molecules from one to one. If this cell is completely filled, it has to enter to the next cell. What will happen? There is a gap there. That gap junction will allow the molecules from one cell to another cell. So almost all the options regarding the cell junctions are correct. So you can write that fourth option 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 all are correct. Next question. To which one of the following categories does the adipose tissue belong? So we know adipose tissue. Adipose tissue, it is a tissue that is made up of adipose cells. Adipose tissue, it is made up of adipose tissue. It is made up of adipocytes. Adipocyte. Adipocyte. So these, when you take the adipose cells like this, fat globule anta ಹೇಳಿ. Fat globule. So what is the fat here? What is adipocyte or what is adipose tissue? It is a tissue which is formed. What is the, why the fat is more going to be stored in the adipose tissue miss or adipocyte? Because undigested food, it will come in the form of excrete. So the food that is not completely metabolized, it is going to store in the adipose tissue. The food that is not completely metabolized or used during the metabolism of any molecule, then the adipocytes are going to store the fat. So here they are asking to which one of the following categories the adipose tissue belong, whether it belongs to epithelium or whether it belongs to connective tissue, whether it belongs to neural tissue or muscular tissue. So adipose tissue will belong to connective tissue. Epithelial tissue will be having squamous, columnar and cuboidal. Connective tissue is blood, bone and adipose. Neural, again it belongs to the neural tissue is totally separate. Muscular tissue, cardiac muscle, striated muscle and smooth muscle. So adipose tissue will belong to connective tissue. Next question. Which of the following is not a connective tissue again? So previous question was adipose tissue will belong to which tissue? But now which of the following is not a connective tissue? Bone, muscle, blood, cartilage. Which is not a connective tissue? Bone is a connective tissue, blood is a connective, so bone is a hard connective tissue, blood is a fluid connective tissue, then cartilage is a dense connective tissue, dense connective tissue. So the answer for this will be muscle. Muscle will belong to cardiac epithelium tissue or muscular tissue at the head. So muscles will belong to muscular tissue. So bone, blood and cartilage are connective tissue. Muscle is not a connective tissue. So the answer will be second one. Next one. So now body cavity is the cavity present between the body wall and the gut wall. In some animals, the body cavity is not lined by mesoderm. Such animals are called. So when we read the animal kingdom, we know that in the chapter Animal Kingdom, we have, so animals are made up of three germ layers. Animals are made up of three germ layers. Three germ layers. So we saw that the outer layer is called ectoderm, the middle layer is called mesoderm and the inner layer is called endoderm. Endoderm, endoderm, second one mesoderm, mesoderm, then ectoderm. The three germ layers from where the animal body or animal body is derived. So they are asking body cavity is a cavity. Body cavity is a cavity present between the body wall and the gut wall. So between the body wall and the gut wall there is a cavity. So that cavity we call it as coelom. Coelom, cavity present between body wall and gut wall. Body wall and gut. Gut is called coelom. So what is the, in some animals the body cavity is not lined by mesoderm. In some animals, if the animal is made up of only ectoderm and endoderm, if mesoderm is absent, so that type of animals are called. So if the body cavity is present, they are called coelomate. If body cavity present, they are called coelomates. If the body cavity is absent, they are called acoelomates. If the body cavity is having false mesoderm, mesoderm may be present or may be absent. That type of animals are called pseudocoelomates. Okay, answer for this will be pseudocoelomates. So pseudocoelomate animals will belong, start from which phylum? Is from the phylum called Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes, Aschelominthes are made up of pseudocoelomate. Example, if we take best example for pseudocoelomate is tapeworm, Taenia solium. Next one. So there is a match the following given here. Match the column A with the column B. Sorry. So the first column A, it is having Porifera. B is Aschelominthes, C is Annelida, D is Arthropoda, E is Echinodermata. So see the column B. So Porifera, when we read the unique characteristics of Porifera, we know that it is best example for canal system. The canal system that is present in the Porifera. So we have the water enters to the body by the small openings called ostia, then it enters to the osculum, then it enters the body and it comes outside. So that type of system is called canal system. So porifera, canal system. A1, Aschelominthes. So Aschelominthes, third one, muscular pharynx. From the phylum Aschelominthes, the mouth started to have muscular pharynx. So pharynx is made up of muscles. So third is correct there. Annelida, the body of the animal is made up of metamus. Annelida, the best example is earthworm. Earthworm, leech will come to the phylum Annelida. So metamus is correct. So A1, B3, C5. Then arthropoda, jointed legs. Usually when we read the characters, main unique characteristics of arthropoda, we say that the animal body is made up of many segments. The segmented body are called metameric animals. So metamers are there. Then E, C5, then D, arthropoda, 4, E. Echinodermata, again it is water vascular system. So first phylum Porifera is having canal system. The last phylum it is having water vascular system. The water vascular system, it is also called umbilical system. So the answer for this will be A1, B3, C5, D4 and E2. So the correct answer for this one is second option. So to answer this, you should know the characteristics of the phylums. Next one. Which of the following is oviparous? So which animal is oviparous? So we have egg-laying mammals, direct giving birth to young ones are there. So those animals which give egg-laying animals are called oviparous. So which is called oviparous here? Whale, elephant, platypus, flying fox. So the answer for this one will be Platyhelminthes. Whale, elephant and flying fox, they belong to oviparous. So egg-laying mammals. So platypus will belong to mammals. So platypus is an animal. It is going to give, or it is going to form egg and the young ones are going to come out. Other all are oviparous. Next one. Next question is, which one of the following sets of animals share four-chambered heart? So as the evolution goes on, when we read the general characteristics of chordata or vertebrata, so the first class of the chordata or vertebrata is, we say the first one is fishes, then amphibia, then reptilia, then aves, and then mammals. So from there the evolution of heart started. So we say first one, fishes, two chamber, amphibians, two chamber, then reptiles, few are three chambered and few animals are four chambered. Aves and mammals are particularly four chambered heart. So two chambered, one auricle, one ventricle. Four chambered means two auricles and two ventricles. So they are asking which animals are having four chambered heart. So the options given: crocodile, birds and mammals. This will be correct. So when you read the reptile characters, we say that crocodiles are the animals that are having four chambered heart. So crocodile will come under four chambered heart. Birds, aves, mammals. So the first option is correct. Then you go for the second option: crocodile, lizards, turtles. Crocodile is okay, but lizard and turtle will have three chambered heart. Amphibian, reptiles and birds. So amphibians are two chambered, reptiles are three chambered, birds are four chambered. Then fourth option, lizards, mammals and birds. So lizards are again three chambered, mammals four chambered, birds are four chambered. So the correct answer will be first one. Crocodile, birds and mammals are having four chambered heart. Completely four chambered heart. Next one. Which one of the following statement is incorrect here? So here, mesoglea is present in between the ectoderm and endoderm. So before the formation here, see the diagram here, the three germ layers, ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm. So between the ectoderm and endoderm, there is a mesoderm. This mesoderm, it is made up of what? A gelatinous substance. A gelatinous substance that is present between the ectoderm and endoderm is called mesoglea. Mesoglea. Because when we read the characteristics of porifera, when you are reading the general characteristics of porifera, we say that these animals are diploblastic. When they are diploblastic, or coelentrates also are diploblastic. When diploblastic and triploblastic, when we are reading, diploblastic animals are made up of ectoderm and endoderm. Phylum Porifera, Coelentrata, we have, these are diploblasts. Then what about mesodome? Mesodome is not formed. So then that substance that is present in between the endoderm and ectoderm is called mesoglein. So here first option, the option is mesoglein is present in between ectoderm and endoderm in Obelia. Obelia belongs to the phylum Coelenterata. Okay, that is correct. Fasciola is a pseudocoelomate animal. So fasciola, it is liver fluke, Fasciola hepatica, it is liver fluke common name. It belongs to phylum Platyhelminthes, but fasciola does not have pseudocoelomate, but it is having acoelomate. Fasciola, fasciola, it is having acoelomate. The coelom is acoelomate here without the coelom. Between the flatworms, when you read the phylum Platyhelminthes, flatworms are going to come under this. So flatworms are not having coelom. So there is no differentiation between body wall and the gut wall. So there is cavity is absent. So fasciola is pseudocoelomate anta heltara. It is not pseudocoelomate, it is acoelomate animal. So that is wrong. Then third option, astrace exhibit radial symmetry. We say that astrace, so that belongs to phylum Echinodermata. In Echinodermata, we said that when you take the symmetry, when you see that when the body wall is cut, when the body of the animal is cut into two equal halves, that is called bilateral symmetry. When you cut the animal into different radii, it is called radial symmetry. In Echinodermates, it is having both bilateral symmetry and radial symmetry. So adult are having bilateral symmetry and the young ones or the larval stages are having radial symmetry. So that is correct. Astrace exhibit, astrace belong to phylum Echinodermata. So the third option is correct. Fourth one, Taenia is a triploblastic. So from the phylum Platyhelminthes till the last class Mammalia, all the animals are triploblastic, made up of 3 germ layers. So the incorrect statement is second one. Fasciola is a pseudocoelomate animal. Next question. Which one of the following which one of the following sets of animals belong to single taxonomic group? So the animals which are having same taxon or taxonomic group, here they are given. The first option is cuttlefish, jellyfish, silverfish, dogfish, starfish. Cuttlefish, it belongs to Vices. Jellyfish, it belongs to phylum Coelenterata. Aurelia is called jellyfish. Silverfish, it belongs to phylum Arthropoda. Dogfish, again it belongs to Pisces or fishes. Starfish, it belongs to Echinodermata. So they are not belong to the same taxon. That is wrong. Second option, monkey, chimpanzee, man. Monkey, chimpanzee, man. See here. Monkey, chimpanzee, man all belong to the same taxonomic group or taxonomy. They belong to the class Mammalia. Okay, that is correct. Monkey, chimpanzee, man are belonging to the same taxonomic group called class Mammalia. Second option is correct. Third one, bat, pigeon, butterfly. So bat belongs to Mammalia, pigeon belongs to aves, butterfly belongs to Arthropoda. So they are not belong to the same taxonomy. So that is also wrong. Fourth one, silkworm, tapeworm, earthworm. Silkworm belongs to again phylum Arthropoda. Tapeworm belongs to phylum Aschelominthes. Earthworm belongs to phylum Annelida. So these are also not belong to the same taxonomic group. So the option which will be correct for this question is second is correct. Monkey, chimpanzee, man will belong to the same taxonomic group. So to know this answer, you should know the particular example, exact example to which phylum, which non-chordata or invertebrates phylum they belong. So when you come here, silverfish, first option when you see that cuttlefish, jellyfish, silverfish, you think all they belong to the fish family. They won't belong to the fish family because jellyfish is the common name of Aurelia that belongs to phylum Coelenterata. Silverfish that belongs to phylum Arthropoda. You may think it as a fish, but a fish alla, it is the example that is coming under insect Arthropoda. Okay, starfish again. Astraeus are called starfish. They belong to phylum Echinodermata. So the answer for this question is, it is second, monkey, chimpanzee and man, they belong to the single taxonomic group called class Mammalia. Phylum Chordata or Vertebrata, class is Mammalia. Next one. Next question. In some animal groups, the body is found divided into compartments with serial repetition of at least some organs. This characteristic feature is called. So, in some animals, there is the body compartments. So, the body compartments are divided into repetitive units. So, what it is called as? So, the option given are metagenesis, metamerism, segmentation, metamorphosis. So, you should know here what is metagenesis. So, metagenesis, when you read the phylum, Coelenterata, we have come to a word. That word, metagenesis. Metagenesis. So, metagenesis, it is also called alternation of generation. Alternation of generation. Alternation of generation. So, what is alternation of generation? Asexual body forms are going to convert into sexual forms. So, alternation of generation, we are asexual body form is converted to sexual. So, here asexual form is called polyp and the sexual form is called medusa. So, to understand this, when a polyp changes into medusa and when a medusa changes into polyp, that type of generation is called alternation of generation or metagenesis. So, what they have asked in the question, in some animal groups, the body is found divided into compartments. So, the body of the animal is divided into compartment like this. This type of compartments in the body of animals. So to understand, you may suddenly you take it as segments also. When you take an earthworm, so in the phylum Annelida, when you take earthworm, clear division of segments are there. When you take the outer view of earthworm, inner and outer, dorsal surface and ventral surface, it is made up of segments like this. But they are not particularly called segmentation, and these forms are called metamers. Metamers. So, different compartments where different organs are present. So, if we take the example of earthworm itself, we say that in the 14th segment of the earthworm, almost there are 100 segments. In the 14th segment, there is a thick band. There is a thick band called clitellum here. Clitellum. Okay. So, when you take 13, 14 and below 18, 19 and 20 segment, female reproductive organs are present below, male reproductive organs are present above. So, that type of metamers which are going to separate the different body organs are called metamers, and the process is called metamerism. Okay. So, here earthworm, it is called bisexual animal. It is a bisexual animal where both the male and female reproductive organs are present in the same animal body. So, metamerism is correct. Segmentation. So, segments are there, but they are asking here the compartments that will lead to the organ separation. So, particularly it will be metamerism. Then metamorphosis, the fourth option. Metamorphosis here. Metamorphosis. So, the life cycle of an animal, if you take any animal, the life cycle of an animal, it includes egg, larva, pupa, then cocoon and adult. So, in the life cycle of any animal, it has different stages. It don't form directly adult. It forms first larva, then it forms adult. So, that type of process where it forms egg, then larva, then pupa, cocoon and adult. This type of mechanism is called metamorphosis. So, the word itself, morphosis, changes. morphologically there is a change. Externally, the body of the animal is going to change. It forms egg, then larva. Larva will not resemble the adult. As soon you see the larva, we can't say that is adult of this animal. So larva, it forms pupa, cocoon and adult. To know this, you can take an example of silkworm also. So metamorphosis is not related to this question. So the answer for this will be metamerism. Next one. Okay. Next, the diagram of, there is a diagram given here. The diagram are the unique characteristics of chordata. The unique characteristics of chordata is given. So here, first, a chordata, how the, just a rough diagram to understand. Here, animals belonging to the phylum, animals belonging to the phylum chordata are fundamentally characterized by the presence of structures noted as A, B, C and D. So here, this one they have labeled as A, then this one they have labeled as B, and this one they have labeled as C, then this part, this end part they have labeled as D. So when you study the difference between chordata and non-chordata, when we read the difference with chordata and non-chordata, so these the unique characteristics that are present in chordata. So the first A will be, this is nerve cord, then B, it is notochord, then C, it is pharyngeal gill slits, pharyngeal gill slits, gill slits. Then D is post-anal tail, post-anal tail. Okay. So first A is nerve cord, B is notochord, C is gill slits, D is post-anal tail. So the option for this one will be, answer will be second one. A nerve cord, B notochord, C gill slits, D post-anal tail. Okay. So difference between non-chordata and chordata. Non-chordata are not made up of all these characters. Gill slits. So the gill slits are the organs for respiration. So when we read with the characteristics of fishes, we say that the respiratory organs are called gills. But when you read the characteristics of aves, we say that the respiratory organs are called lungs. So from the mammals, the well-developed lungs are there for respiration. Gills are there. But till the phylum non-chordata, till the phylum Echinodermata, we say that. So we are not saying particularly lungs there. We say book lungs or gills are present. So well-defined respiratory organs will start from the phylum Chordata. In the phylum Chordata, fishes, amphibia will be having the respiratory organs. So the answer is A nerve cord, B notochord, C gill slits, then D is post-anal tail. Next one. Right. Match the column 1 with column 2 and select the correct option. So in the column 1, we have, the question is amphibia. Column 1, amphibia. B, mammals. C, chondrichthyes. D, osteichthyes. E, cyclostoma. F is apes. In the column 2, amphibia. So we know that amphibians are the animals, they are going to adapt themselves, or the habitat of amphibians are both. They can live in land and water. So that type of animals are called amphibians. So here the option for amphibia answer will be dual habitat. So dual habitat means they can adjust to both water and land. That type of animals are called amphibious. Frogs are the best example for amphibious. Then B option, mammals. So mammals, so the unique characteristics of mammals means they have mammary glands. What are mammary glands here? The mammary glands are the organs for milk production. So in the female, mammary glands are prominent for milk secretion, but in the mammals, in the man, the mammary glands are rudimentary. They are present, but they are not doing any function. That type of organs are called vestigial organs. Next, C. Chondrichthyes. The fishes that are made up of the endoskeleton that is made up of cartilage. That type of animals are called cartilaginous fishes. So here the endoskeleton is made up of cartilage. So here the second option, C. Cartilaginous notochord. Then osteichthyes. So osteichthyes means we say the animals that are made up of bone. The endoskeleton is bony. That type of animals are called osteichthyes. So in the column 2 related to osteichthyes, they have not given uh, osteichthyes are they are made up of bone. The cartilage is not made up of bone. They have given air bladder. So air bladder is correct here because the osteichthyes are the fishes, they are made up of endoskeleton which is bony. The heavier body will make the fish to sink in the water. For that purpose, at the abdomen, in the dorsal fin, they have a particular air bladder. So we can also say buoyancy. The term buoyancy. The plants, some plants or some flowers are there which can float in water. Example, when you take lotus. So here buoyancy is very important for the fishes to survive. If the body is heavier, they may sink into the water and they may die. For that purpose, there are air bladder for floating of fish. So air bladders are present in osteichthyes. Then what about air bladders in the chondrichthyes? In chondrichthyes, air bladders are not present because they are made up of cartilage. Cartilage is not heavier. So it is a soft tissue. Bone is a hard tissue. So air bladders are present in osteichthyes, but air bladders are present in not present in chondrichthyes. So D osteichthyes it is air bladder. Then E cyclostoma. Cyclostoma are the animals they have sucking and circular mouth without jaws. Jawless animals are called cyclostoma. Echidna. So here jawless animals cyclostoma, sucking and circular mouth without jaws. Jaws are they not present, but the mouth is sucking and circular type. So circular and they can suck the any organism, but jaws are not up. If jaws are not there, even the teeth are also absent. But the mouth is sucking type. They can suck anything from the surface. Next, aves. Aves are the first. The prominent characteristics of aves is, so these are the aves are the animals they can fly in the air. So flight mode ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. So flight mode ಗೆ aves ಬಂದಾಗ then the body of the animal should be light. So that type of bones that are present in the aves are called pneumatic bones. The light bones that are present inside the body of the aves is called pneumatic bones. So pneumatic bones. So due to that, they are hollow in nature. Bones are very hollow, and some of the organs are also absent in the birds that will make the animal to fly. So they have only one ovary. So some of the organs like ovary is single, and even the reproductive organ, male reproductive organ also single. For that purpose, the aves are light in weight. So A amphibia, it is dual character. A is 5. B mammals, mammary gland. B 3. C chondrichthyes cartilaginous. D osteichthyes air bladder. E cyclostoma sucking and circular mouth without jaws. F aves pneumatic bone. So first option is correct. Next one. Next question. Which of the following has radial symmetrical adult and bilateral symmetrical in larva? So previously we had discussed with this question. I said in the phylum Echinodermata. So in the phylum Echinodermata, we said that the body form is of two types. In the phylum Echinodermata. Echinodermata. So we say some animals will exhibit. So some animals will exhibit bilateral symmetry. Bilateral symmetry. Symmetry means when you cut the body of the animal into half. Symmetry. Then radial symmetry. When you cut the body of the animal into different radii. Radial symmetry. So most of the animals will have only one symmetry, either bilateral symmetry or radial symmetry. So from the phylum Porifera till the phylum Platyhelminthes, almost the animals are radial symmetry. But when you start with the phylum Platyhelminthes till Arthropoda, we have bilateral symmetry. But only in the phylum Echinodermata, in the last phylum of the invertebrate, it is having both. It is having both symmetry. So they are asking which of the following has radial symmetry in the adults. When you cut, if you take a starfish, when you cut the body of the animal into different radii, we get equal halves. So here, okay, this type body symmetry. So adult is radial symmetry, but larva, when you take the larva of this animals, it is bilateral symmetry. So the only one phylum where both the symmetries are exhibited, only one phylum where both the symmetries are exhibited, that phylum is called Echinodermata. So the answer will be Echinodermata. But other options, Reptilia. So from the phylum fishes till the mammals, all are bilateral symmetry only. So Reptilia will have bilateral symmetry. Amphibia will also have bilateral symmetry. Fourth one, Nemathe So Nemathe is nothing but Ascaleminthis. So these are also having bilateral symmetry. So Echinodermata is the only animal or only class, only phylum where both adult will exhibit radial symmetry and the larva will exhibit bilateral symmetry. What is symmetry? When you cut the body of the animal into two equal halves, we have equal organs on either side. That is called symmetry. Next. Next question. In most simple type of canal system, so unique character of poriferans is canal system. So in this we said canal system, which of the following ways water is going to flow in? So when you take, so if I take the diagram of cycon, so the best example for phylum porifera, it is cycon. Cycon, it is having outer covering, outer opening like this. On the outer opening, then we have minute pores here. Okay, this is osculum. The minute pores are called ostia. Then we have a cavity here. This cavity is called spongocele. Spongocele. So osculum, ostia, and spongocele. They are asking how the water is going to come out. So when the water is going to flow inside and how it is going to come out. You should know the pathway here. So here the poriferans are water exhibiting animals. They are going to dwell in water. So when they are living in water, how the movement of water will take outside, inside and outside. They are asking exhibit. So in most simple type of canal system of porifera, which of the following ways exhibit water flow? So how the water flow is going to occur? See here. So large opening called osculum, then it goes to ostia, then it goes to cavity called spongocele, then the water is going to come out. Okay, that type is the path here. So the answer will be osculum, ostia, spongocele and exterior. They are going to come out water. So here in the poriferan we say the cells like choanocytes and pinacocytes are going to help. Pinacocytes. T cells, because we say from the phylum porifera till the phylum Coelenterata, we say it is cellular grade of organization. So cells will do the most of the functions. Organs are not from cells to tissue, tissue to organs, and organs to organ system ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So cells most of the function ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ, so the cells called coenocyte cells and the cells called pinacocyte cells that are present inside and outside the body of animal, they are going to carry the water inside the animal body and they are going to help the body of the animal to survive. So osculum to ostia, ostia to spongocyte and exterior. Osculum is a large opening, ostia is a minute opening, spongocyte is the cavity, exterior, outside. Okay, the answer will be 1. Next question. Next is diploblastic and triploblastic are the terms that describe. Already had written the diagram on the board, the previous question. Diploblastic and triploblastic. So what are diploblastic animals? The animals that are made up of only two germ layers, endoderm and ectoderm. Triploblastic, the animal that is made up of three germ layers, endoderm, ectoderm and mesoderm. So here the number of cell types during development, the first option is wrong. Then the number of germ layers during the embryonic development. So this is correct. The second option is correct for this diploblastic and triploblastic. The number of invaginations during embryonic development. After the formation of germ layer, then there is a formation of embryonic development. The number of heads during embryonic development. So if you take any animal, first the germ layers are formed. From the germ layers, the embryonic development will take place. So the answer will be the number of germ layers during embryonic development are called diploblastic and triploblastic. Next one. Next question. In plants and cells. In plants, cell division occurs. So in plants, cell division occurs continuously. Simple blank question they are given. Fill the blanks. In plants, cell division occurs continuously. So options are: in plants, cell division occurs continuously, dash, whereas in animals it occurs up to certain age. So we know that till the death the plants are going to grow, but in the animals up to certain age we are going to grow. After that the growth will stop. So that is what the cell division has stopped. Growth factor has stopped. So in plants cell division occurs continuously only up to certain age is the second group. In plants cell division occurs continuously, whereas in animals it occurs up to certain age. Next. Next question is, which two of the below given points are known as the twin characteristics of growth? Which two of the below given points are known as twin characteristics of growth? Okay, so it will be the cell mass and cell number. So 1 and 2 are correct. The options will be given here. So which two of the below given points are known as twin characteristics of growth means you know that cell mass and cell number are the twin characteristics of growth. So if the options are displayed, you should know that for this the answer will be cell mass and cell number is related to growth. Next question again. Match the column 1 with column 2 and select the correct option. So in the column 1, we have planaria, fungi, yeast and amoeba. So the options here. So here planaria. So in the column 2, they have asked which type of uh, reproduction will takes place, whether it is asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction option. So almost all these animals which are here, planaria belongs to phyla Platyhelminthes, fungi, mycota, yeast, algae, then amoeba. It is protozoan. So all these animals will be having asexual reproduction only. So here planaria. So planaria will reproduce by the process called asexual spores and even true regeneration. So here planaria it will be having true regeneration. Then planaria, even you can have fragmentation. So some animals will exhibit many types of reproduction. So planaria it is can take fragmentation. When we cut the body of the animal into different halves or small pieces, again the animal body will develop. So that is called autotomy and healthy. So the capacity to form a new individual is called autotomy. So by the fragmentation, planaria will reproduce. So A will be 5. Then B, fungi. Fungi will reproduce by asexual pores and binary fission. So when you binary fission by cutting, when there is a fission in two parts, when you cut the body of the animal, the body divides into two equal halves, then it forms binary fission. So B will have two options, 2 and 1. Then C, yeast, budding, when the buds are formed. So when the adult yeast will detach with the bud and the bud will again grow into new individual. Then D4, amoeba, it is true regeneration. Okay, amoeba is true regeneration. A for planaria fragment, 2 regeneration, B2 fungi asexual pores, and 5 C is budding, D is binary. So amoeba is binary fission. So the correct option for this match of following will be fourth one, A4, B2 and 5, C3, D1. So answer is fourth one. Next one. Which of the following organisms do not reproduce? So reproduction is a phenomena or one of the factor for organisms to consider as living. So whether the defining characteristics of living organisms are growth, reproduction, response to stimuli, and cellular organization and metabolism. In these five characteristics of living organism, reproduction is also one. So if we consider that as a living organism, it should have the capacity to reproduce. If there is no reproduction property in the animal, then it is not considered as living property. So here the options are worker bees, all of these mules, infertile human couples. So worker bees. So when you take the honeybee colony, so in the honeybee colony we have three species there. One is called queen, one is called male drone, and the third one is worker bee. Worker bees are called as infertile. They are sterile. They do not have the capacity to reproduce. So they do not reproduce. Mules. So these mules are formed by the crossing of horse and donkey. When you cross a female horse with a male donkey, then we get a new progeny called mule. So this mule is also infertile. It does not have the capacity to reproduce. Then infertile human couples. So some couples who do not have the capacity to reproduce or they to produce its own progeny are called infertile human couples. So all of this is correct. So the answer will be second, all of this. Next one is a branch of science dealing with identification, nomenclature and classification of organism. So which is a particular scientific word which studies about identification of organisms, naming of organisms, classifying of organisms. That study is called taxonomy. So taxonomy is a branch of science dealing with identification, nomenclature and classification. So that is correct. Then what about morphology? Morphology is study of external characteristics of organisms. Anatomy, study of internal anatomy, internal organs. Study of internal organs is called anatomy. Ecology, study of ecosystem is called ecology. So the word that will suit for this blank is taxonomy is a branch of science dealing with identification, nomenclature and classification of organisms. Next question. Select the correctly written botanical or zoological name. So when we read the rules of binomial nomenclature, according to that, which name is correct? So we should know that the rules of binomial nomenclature. So the first rule is the first name, the species name and the genus name. The genus name should be written in capital letter and the species name should start with the small letter, and it should be italicized. Okay, those are some properties given in the binomial nomenclature. Which is correct, they are asking. The first one is Pantherus tigris. So the common name is tiger and the scientific name is Pantherus tigris. So here Pantherus tigris, see that P is capital first letter, and tigris, that is also, it is correct. And it should be italicized, that is very important. When you are written in handwritten, it should be underlined. When you are writing on a book, the scientific name should be underlined. But when you are typing it, it is should be italicized. Then second option is Homo sapiens. The common name of man is called Homo sapiens. The first letter is H, capital is there, but the second sapiens, the species name S has started with capital letter, so that is wrong. Then Mangifera indica, the common name of mango. Again, M is capital, I is capital, so this is also wrong. Pisum sativum, the common name of garden pea. P is capital, S is small letter, but it is not italicized. So the answer for this will be Pantherus tigris. Okay, next question. ICBN is, so ICBN, they have asked the expansion of ICBN. So International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. So International Code of Botanical Nomenclature is correct. So ICZ antanu irutte nandu. It is International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. So the first option, International Code of Biological Naming, wrong. International Class of Biological Nomenclature, it is also wrong. But the third option, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, is correct. Third option is correct. Next one. Next one is, which one of the following books was contributed by Carolus Linnaeus? So Carolus Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy, is written which book? They have asked. So the books they have given here: History of Planetarium, History of Naturalis, Systemae of Naturae, and all of this. Carolus Linnaeus wrote a book called Systemae of Naturae. So here the third option, Systemae of Naturae, is correct. History of Planetarium and History of Naturalis are written by the scientist called L.D. Here, History of Planetarium includes the information of plants. History of Naturalis includes the information about animals. And System of Naturae was a particular book written by Carolus Linnaeus, where many varieties of plants and animals taxonomy is regarding nomenclature, classification, and identification is given there. So, which is the Systemae of Naturae is written by Carolus Linnaeus. All of this is wrong. So, the answer for this will be Systemae of Naturae. Next one. Next question. Founder of binomial nomenclature. Again, who is called as father of binomial nomenclature? So, the options are Darwin. So, Darwin is considered as a father of, it is a naturalist who we read about theory of Darwinism, natural selection theory ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Then Lamarck, use and disuse theory ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So the organs which have been used and disused. Then Linnaeus, again Carolus Linnaeus is a founder of binomial nomenclature. Mendel, Gregor Mendel, is the father of genetics. So Darwin is a father of natural selection theory. Lamarck is also coming under natural selection theory, but he particularly said about use and disuse of organs. Carolus Linnaeus is the father of or founder of binomial nomenclature. The term taxonomy will have the binomial nomenclature. Mendel is called as a father of genetics, where he worked on a plant called Pisum sativum. So the answer is third one, Linnaeus. Next. Which of the following is a defining characteristics of living organism? Again, so when we read the characteristics of living organism, I said that there are 5 characters which a living organism will have. One is called growth, one is called reproduction, one is called metabolism, then one is called response to stimuli, and cellular organization. Which of the following is a defining characteristics of living organism? So for this, response to external stimuli will be the defining character. Here, why response to external stimuli is considered as a defining character? Why not growth, reproduction, and metabolism? So if you take growth, growth is seen in both living and non-living organisms. How come in the non-living organisms, miss? When you take the mountain, or if you take the sand muds, you see the sand is going on growing. Even the mountains also somewhere, he said that they are going to grow. So some non-living things also will grow. So it is not a defining character. Then reproduction is also not a defining character, because some organisms will reproduce and some organisms will not reproduce. Example in the previous question, mules, worker bees, and some of the human beings, they do not have the capacity of reproduction. So those two will not be the not defining characters. So the options given to you all are ability to make sound. Ability to make sound is a characteristic of a living organism, but all organisms will not produce sound. Okay. If you take the invertebrates and some will not produce the sound at all. Then response to external stimuli. This is correct. So if there is a fire, if a hand goes to the fire, suddenly we'll remove the hands. That is called response to external stimuli. If somebody will prick you with the needle, then suddenly you feel the pain and you'll remove your hand. So that is called response to external stimuli. So non-living things will not have this response to external stimuli. If you beat a table with your hand hardly, there is no reaction by the non-living thing. So response to external stimuli is the defining characteristics of living organism. Then they have given growth and reproduction. Growth I said, and reproduction also. They are not defining, because growth is seen in both living and non-living, and reproduction is not seen in all the organisms.